Luna, what do you think of this matchup? Like, Merfolk or Eldrazi, who do you think's favored? I really have no idea.
Well, just looking at the deck list, I feel like the Merfolk list is pretty favored. Brad doesn't have a lot of removal. I think he has Dismember. He also runs 4 Chalice of the Voids, which doesn't really do anything against Aether Vial and Cavernous Souls. So the combination of all those dead cards plus lack of removal, I mean, Merfolk is more of like a critical mass deck, right? You just like reach a point where you've played so many Merfolks in play that you just start, each individual Merfolk is like a 5/5 or a 6/6. And then on top of that, I'm pretty sure he has cards like Spreading Seas and ways to turn his Tron lands into islands or the Eldrazi temples into islands as
Yep.
well. So it's a lot of disruption. I'm definitely thinking Merfolk's favored here.
Yeah, it looks like both players are on a pretty big mulligan here. Nia took down to 6 and Brad down to 5. How are these opening hands looking? So Merfolk, not a lot of action. We see one Lord in Aether Vial and a Subtlety. And then on the Brad side, we have some good Eldrazi, but nothing coming down right away. But Tron, it looks like that Urza's Tower off the top could be a big deal because Tron could be assembled here on turn 3.
Yeah, I think this is a very oh wow, even the ring as
Whoa.
well.
Oof.
And the way it's playing out, Nikachu doesn't have a way to disrupt these lands, so Brad on turn 3 is going to be able to Thought-Knot Seer and Matter Reshaper and follow up with the ring and have all his mana. This is one of the slower hands for Merfolk, even though he did keep a 4-land 3 speller, which seems reasonable. Only 2 of these are actual threats. The subtlety is kind of nice though, because it is going to be able to stop the Thought-Knots here, but it's going to put him down on cards. So kind of looking like if Merfolk's going to win this game and needs to pressure pretty aggressively, this Tron
Yeah.
is definitely going to start outscaling.
Yeah, especially with that one ring draw. There's some hope, especially on the Moldify, that, oh, you assemble Tron, but maybe you don't have much action left over. But with that one ring coming off the top, action's probably not going to be a problem for Brad this game. So, what do you think you pitch to this subtlety here? Because the Thought Knots, you pretty much have to subtlety the Thought Knot, right? So, you just got to subtlety and pitch a Lord of Atlantis and hope that Sevulin and one Lord get there with the Mutavault?
Yeah, I think so. There's really nothing else that you can do about it because the Thought-Knot's going to take a card anyways. So you're kind
Yeah.
of just already pushed into a position where you might as well do it because if you don't, you're just going to lose your card anyways. And especially with the way his hand is played out, if he does encounter the Thought Knot, he's just going to take the Lord of Atlantis anyways, probably.
Yeah.
Because with this Botanical Sanctum, can't even cast Subtlety on the next turn. So, oh, it looks like
Ooh.
Brad's actually thinking about the ring here.
I mean, the power of the ring is pretty intoxicating. It's hard to pass that up. So Brad can
Yeah,
ring and matter reshaper here still, but can't play the thought not this turn.
I think Brad's trying to play around Tidebinder here. I just looked at Nikachu's list and he runs 4 Tidebinders, and this is a turn where his Vial's on 2 and he doesn't have Tidebinder mana left. So being able to get the ring down immediately, I think is a good game plan.
I think Nikachu really needs like a tide shaper, needs some way to get an island over there,
Yeah.
and maybe the island walk with the Mutavault and Lord of Atlantis can get there. I think that might be what this one comes down. Oh, and there's the
Oh wow,
Tidebinder
there's
you
the
mentioned
Tidebinder.
too.
I was actually wondering if Nikachu is gonna upkeep the Vial and just tick it up to 3. It looks like he wants to keep it on 2.
Yeah, so I guess he can so Nikachu can violin another lord and then
Yeah.
Tidebinder the One Ring probably, although
Yeah.
that would leave him without a card for subtlety, if that matters this turn.
Well, I don't think you're really too worried about holding on to the subtlety right now. Probably more worried about clearing the board with all this dust or something like that, which doesn't really seem like you could play around something like that.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about in all his dust or something coming off the top. Well, you got a Tidebinder here, right, I would think,
Yeah,
to shut
yeah,
down the ring?
definitely. I mean, I think Nikachu might be a little concerned if Brad's baiting him into committing another creature into play and getting all his dust in. He might feel a bit sad about that, but again, Brad's just gonna outscale Merfolk, and Merfolk really just needs to try and end the game as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Letting
the
Brad have more cards here is not gonna do him any favors.
Yeah, the uncheck One Ring will just run away with this game with, especially with Tron being assembled, so Brad has all the cards and all the mana, which is a pretty good place to be in Magic.
Oh, this is interesting decision point for Nikachu. He could either subtlety this right now, or you can put the Lord out and just allow the subtlety to. Yeah, I think
Ooh.
this is probably better. I think you just don't want the body in play.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no island on Brad's side of the battlefield yet, so a 4/4 is
Yeah.
actually a pretty good blocker at the moment. Although going down the Lord, can the Lord just outscale? Is there any argument to letting this go, putting the Lord into play, and hoping you get a 3rd Lord off the top and can just outscale the Thought Knot?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. There's a lot of different possibilities here. I think I lean more towards doing the subtlety because Proud is only going to be working with 4 mana after this, and there's not a whole lot. Like, what's even the worst case scenario that Proud can do here? Maybe another Thought Knot or a Matter Shaper,
It looks like
both of
Nikachu
which
agrees with
are,
you.
yeah.
There's a subtlety to, at least temporarily take care of the Thought Knot here.
Mm, how much damage is 4, 6, 10 plus 3 from the Mutavault? So
I mean, it's
his
a 2-turn
15?
clock, most likely.
Yeah.
There is a Mattery Shaper to block.
Most notably, the ring has no text right now. So,
Yes. Yeah,
and
that Tidebinder, very good here. That was kinda swinging the game, although Ether Vial, not the not the best card off the top on turn 5.
this is a kind of tricky attack. You don't really want to lose your lord. You get a free attack with the I forget the name of the 3 mana
Um,
Merfolk. What's her name?
Sevulin, I think. Sevulin?
Sevulum? Yeah, Sevulum. You get a free attack with that because it's indestructible. But you don't really attack with Lord, and you definitely don't attack with Tidebinder because then you give Brad a lot of draws. Yeah. Oh, really?
Wow.
He's willing to trade
Wow.
here?
So, yeah. Nikachu, ooh, that's interesting. That is a lord off the top that can be violent into play. I don't think that changes the math on the One Ring becoming active, but
But
that does
it does
push
allow
through
him
more
to,
damage.
and it also allows the Tidebinder to live. I think that's the
Oh,
biggest thing here.
you're right. That's
Keeps
huge.
the ring
And
turned off. Wow. And I think
yeah,
Brad was
that's
really, really hoping that that Tidebinder is gonna die and give him a few more draws to find his out.
and this game might be about over. I thought Merfolk were in bad shape with the starting hand because that's that Thought Knot Seer. A Dismember, does that do anything? It's gonna cost Brad 4 life. There's no black mana. I don't know if the Dismember is that
Yeah.
helpful here.
Does technically save on damage because he can kill a Lord and takes off all the buffs. However, I think he's probably just gonna have to sack Mindstone here and look for an All Is Dust.
There's 2
Probably
in
his
the
only
main deck.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 2 All Is does, and I think that's probably what Brad needs to see here. I
He
think
could
you're right.
he also has the option of actually might give him more outs to dismember the Tidebinder. Allows the ring to be turned on again, and then he can draw 2 cards. If he has enough mana to dismember and activate ring and sack Mindstone and still cast All His Dust, then that
Ooh.
would give him 3 outs to finding All His Dust.
Yeah,
You
that's a
definitely
good
lead on, yeah, I think you definitely lead on the dismember. Okay. Or Mindstone. He's
okay.
probably gonna have to do both.
Yeah, most likely. Ooh, so there's some more mana. So I think Brad
Yeah.
definitely has enough mana to dismember and draw with the ring and steal all his dust.
Yeah.
But that means you gotta have the all his dust in the top 2 cards, or and I think that's pretty much the game, right? You
Yeah.
dismember the Tidebinder and just knock the top of the deck and hope that the One Ring is kind.
Yeah. He has a 1 in 23 and then another 1 in 23. So roughly about 5% each, which gives him probably around an 8% chance of finding it, maybe a little bit less than that. Not a whole lot. You could choose definitely like probably over 90% to just kill him next turn.
Is the Voldaren Hexcatcher's counter ability combined with the ward from Sevulin, is there any way this is gonna tax Brad's mana so much that in all this dust isn't good enough? Because he can sack Merfolk to force spike essentially non-creature spells thanks to the Hexcatcher.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that. So
Yeah, I
that
hadn't
is a
thought
lot
about
of
that
mana.
either.
Yeah,
There's
being at 4 life and with this mutable in play, all this might actually not even be an out anymore. And plus
yeah,
with
I
the
forgot
ring
about the
as well, he's
Hexcatcher.
gonna take damage. So let's say he actually does find all his dust, activates the ring, he's gonna have 2 counters. Pikachu can just put him to 2 with Mutavault and then gonna
The
die to the
ring.
ring anyways.
Yeah. Well,
So
here's
it seems
the
like,
ooh. There's a draw. Nothing
yeah,
nothing helpful. 2 Thought Knot Seers. Not going to get the job done here, I don't think, and it looks like game 1 is about to go to the Merfolk, and Brad scoops it up.
yeah,
Wow.
that was a lot quicker than our game. Oh, did you see that, Brad? He clicked draw a card. I don't know how do you feel about, I mean, there's actually there's a all is dust That was one of
Was
his
that the
nice
top
draws.
card?
I don't think it was
Oh,
the top card or the card after,
but it was close,
but
yeah. Oh,
where do you stand on that? Do you like to
I
click draw a card? Do you
I try to avoid the impulse. I do it sometimes, but I try not to do it because I feel like it's the risk is it traps you into like bad thinking and like you can only play with the information you have, right? So you got to make the best decision you can with the information you have. So the top card of your deck isn't really relevant because there's no way Brad could have gotten that card. So I do it sometimes for fun, but I try to avoid it. What about you, Luna? Are you a draw a card person to see what you had on top?
Oh, yeah. I just it's definitely more fun to know. Although if I'm playing in a real tournament, I never look after mulliganing. I know some people look, I never look. If it's a mulligan, it's always a mulligan. Don't care what's on top.
What do we see in these sideboards, Luna? Is there anything that can swing the matchup from either side that you see?
So I feel like for Nikachu, probably doesn't want to do too many changes. Merfolk is a deck that highly synergizes with every other Merfolk they have in play. If you start cutting too many and start trying to disrupt your opponent's game plan, then you dilute your deck with too many answers. You're not actually to play your primary game plan. So I think the
Yeah.
sideboarding is more for Brad's side. Nikachu does have a couple of spell pierces that he can bring in for all his decks. I'm pretty sure. Does Brad have Oblivion Stone? I'm not seeing Oblivion
I'm not
Stone.
seeing an Oblivion Stone. Yeah, it's always tricky to sideboard with a Karn deck because you have the like, do I
Right.
bring in my one copy or trust that my four Karns will find my one copy? So I think we'll see a few changes from Brad, but I think you also lean on Karn a bit. The one that really stands out to me in the Merfolk sideboard is actually the Harbinger of Tide seems pretty good because as you were saying, that's a way you can keep your Merfolk count high, but also get a little more removal and like against 4, 5, 6 mana Eldrazi, the tempo play of like returning the tap creature to its controller's hand is actually pretty strong. Like that can buy you a lot of time to force through those last few points of damage. So I expect we'll see the Harbingers, which I think we've already seen brought in. But other than that, I'm not sure there's much for Merfolk to do really.
Hmm. Very
Oh,
quick
look,
sideboarding.
quick sideboarding on to game 3. And how are these hands looking? Merfolk's got a lot of lands. In Tron, we see two Tron pieces. We see four lands altogether, two Tron pieces, a ring, and a Thought Knot. The Mind Stone, I guess, does help being on the play. You can get down to Thought Knot or One Ring pretty quickly. Is this a keep from the Merfolk side, you think, Luna?
I think so. I think it's very close. You have, I think the Mutavault might push it over the edge. If that Mutavault was another island, then maybe you don't have enough pressure. But we have two disruption spells. We have a 2-drop Merfolk, and we also have a Vault. So I think it's good enough. And the force negation notably can just end the game on the spot. So
Yeah,
both
that's a
hands are pretty cool.
good answer to the One Ring and also the All is Dust we've been talking about. Force of Negation, very good there. And the Tidebinder can shut down the One Ring too. So actually, this hand lines up pretty well, I think, with Brad's hand at the moment. Outside of that Thought Knot Seer.
Right, yeah. He has the force negation for the ring. Just needs an answer for Thought Knot.
The
It'll
Savulon's a
be
pretty big
interesting.
draw.
What was?
With the Sevulin, just to the
Oh
Merfolk, the
yeah.
card advantage that offers is very powerful for Merfolk. Although it might end up getting thought knotted before it hits the battlefield, depending on what Brad does here. I'm actually curious. Do you slam the thought knot or the One Ring? Last game we saw the One Ring. If Brad does that again, he's gonna get a little bit blown out, I think, because then you can force of negation and then get down the Sevulin.
I feel like he's gonna go for the Wondering because he can. Well, I guess he can't play around Spell Pierce, but he can play around Tidebinder for a turn.
Yep. Although the force of negation, now we have two of them in hand. It's gonna be a blowout here if it's the One Ring. I think you gotta snip off the counter. I think if you get the option.
I feel like leading with Thought Knot might be better, just because he can't get Spell Pierce.
Yeah, do
Very
the
likely the Thought Knot
oh,
resolves, and then you can take the answer for the ring out of the hand.
I think that's exactly what Brad's gonna do. We see the thought not coming down, gonna get a little hand check. We're gonna see the Flash Lord hit the battlefield for Merfolk, and then this is a tricky hand.
Yeah,
So
Brad's not gonna be happy to see Tidebinder and double force negation. 3
he
answers
knows
for the ring.
his One Ring is pretty much not going to do anything this game, which is not a great place to be when you just have two lands in hand outside of the One Ring.
Brad does have Tron and a Mind Stone, so he does get 2 draws next turn. Maybe he can start or playing some of his big spells, draws them.
Yeah, that's what Brad really needs, I think, is something massive off the top. Otherwise, the Merfolk are just gonna start chipping in. Takes the Sevulin from hand. So I guess just giving up on the One Ring. There's so many answers to it. There's no use in trying to protect it. We see another Mutavault, but Merfolk doesn't really have much pressure yet. This Thought Knot's gonna hold down the fort for the time. Oh boy, another ring. Did 2 rings do anything?
That actually might not be the worst thing in the world. First one likely gets Tidebindered. Second one gets Force Negation, exiling Force Negation, and now Nikachu would have no more spells. Brad just has a bajillion mana with
Yeah.
Mind Stone, so
Yeah, and the Thought Knot's big enough to hold back the Mutavaults for now, so he's not really taking any damage. So maybe that's the way that Eldrazi can stabilize here.
I think so. He's gonna lead with the Mind Stone. See what else he can find. Oh, a
Ooh.
Reality Smasher. That just gets around all of Nikachu's hand.
Yeah, that's a clock. The Eldrazi are big. Merfolk, they can scale up, but the Eldrazi are just naturally so big. Brad could just slam the Reality Smasher and hit for 9 here. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think he wants to lead on the ring first, get out one of
Yep.
Nikachu's answers, and then start smashing. I think you
So you think
can go ahead.
so you think you go Tidebinder for the first ring and then force on the second one? Is that the line you'd take?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that the Tidebinder stops that Force doesn't stop. So I think I'd rather have the extra creature in play. You
Yeah.
might be a little bit worried about this member later on in the game, but you still have Force Negation. Problem with just casting a Force Negation here is that it leaves you with no board presence at all. And you're actually just losing a board to a Thought Knot.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. We haven't seen many Merfolk hit the battlefield, and the Reality Smasher is currently unknown, but there's a lot of Eldrazi that are coming. So this one ring has to be answered. It'll be interesting. I think I would go with the line you're saying. I think just getting the Tidebinder on the battlefield is pretty important here.
Yeah, I think so as well.
How
Pikachu's
do you
also seeing all this mana floated, so he has to be a little bit worried about what's to come. Might be double checking Brad's deck list to see what else he could add.
Yeah, that's the upside of open deck list tournaments. You can kind of do a little peek and see what you might have to play around, what you should be afraid of. What are your feelings on Modern Tron, Luna? It's one of the most
Oh, I love the
controversial
deck.
decks.
When I was,
Are you a Tron fan?
I'm a big Tron fan. When I was, I've been playing Magic forever, but I took a break for a while. And when I first came back to Modern, and I was asking all my friends, I didn't have a collection. I was like, "Does anybody have a deck I can borrow?" Eldrazi Tron was actually the deck that one of my friends had, so it was my go-to deck for a few months, and I really enjoyed it. Playing
Oh,
big
that's
dumb guys on turn 3. Who doesn't want that?
yeah. I do kinda like Eldrazi Tron, the more traditional Tron. Ugh, I actually hate the, like, ramp into Karn style Tron decks, but Eldrazi Tron is kinda cool. Well, we see the line here. There's the One Ring coming down. Here comes the Tidebinder to stifle the One Ring. We see a Matter Reshaper off the top. Merfolk's gonna have to draw something here. These Eldrazi are just gonna be too big, I think, this game.
I think Brad might just be on the beatdown plan here. Just plays Rally Smasher, even if the Tidebinder trades to the 4/4, he gets his ring back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably what I would do. Get down and here it comes, the Reality Smasher, hasty 5/5 trampler, and push with both. Do you trade the Tidebinder? So you get a card from the Thought Knot, but you turn on the One Ring. Unknown about the second One Ring at the moment. Nikachu does not know that Brad do a second one, so I guess there's the impulse to keep the Tidebinder on the battlefield for now.
I think you have to go with this line. If you just trade here, what pressure are you left with?
Yeah, looks like it's a race. I mean, Merfolk can get in for what, 10-ish here? 11 with the Mutavault?
Mhm.
Can they oh, wow, and
Yeah,
right
the Master
now
was a really nice draw.
yeah, because Brad can only hit for 9, so on board, he can put Nikachu down to 1, and that's just a land off the top.
Well, he does
Now
still
you
have the
might have
One Ring for the extra protection, but Nikachu has the double force, so it might just
yeah,
be Brad might have to just play Matter Shaper and pass now, or at least probably plays the One Ring just to get out the force negation.
and
You
then the
kinda have to.
defensive Eldrazi plan, staying back on defense to do some blocking, and here comes yeah, exactly, the One Ring, Force, pitching Force to deal with the second One Ring. And then all Brad has left at the moment is a Matter Reshaper, and then I don't think can you attack at all? Can you get him in, like, the Reality Smasher and still block enough to stay alive?
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I don't think Brad's game plan here is to try and race anymore. I think his game plan is to just find an all his dust at this point and stay alive.
Yeah. There were no more All's Dust in the sideboards, right? So it's just the 2 that Brad's gonna be looking for.
Yep.
Subtlety off the top, so that doesn't stop in All Is Dust, but it would stop in Eldrazi,
We're kind
and
of
we're
at a stalemate right now.
yeah,
Neither
we're at a
player's attacking. I
yeah, we've
expect to
reached
see the EOT subtlety here, though.
it's a flying
No
threat,
pressure.
like, Brad's at 9, you can get in for 3 a turn with the subtlety, like, that's something that the Eldrazi can't currently block
I think Pikachu actually is lethal. I don't know if he
with the
wants
double
to.
Mutavault. Ooh, not gonna
Yeah,
go for it. Okay, just gonna chip in this turn with the subtlety. I guess there could be a
no, it
risk of
actually
a
tempting.
dismember or something? Dismember.
Or
So Brad's gonna be dropping down to 9, and I think we're at the all is dust or bust part of this game, unless there's something else in Brad's deck list that I'm a Worm Coil doesn't do it, Cityscape Leveler. I think it's pretty much gotta be oh, okay.
oh,
Well,
oh,
a One Ring does do it for a turn at
let's
least.
start
That
the
is
chain. Ring into
yeah,
ring.
ring into ring, and the ring's still not gonna do anything, but it will give protection for a turn, which at this point is a pretty big deal for Brad.
Well, it resets, right? He just picks the one that is fresh.
I believe Tidebinder says, like, cards with this name, but I should let me double check the wording on it.
Well, looks like he can activate it. And he found Cityscape Leveler,
Okay.
so he can kill
Ooh.
with subtlety, which is nice.
Ooh. Oh, that's yeah, you are correct about Tidebinder. So there's a Cityscape. Is this swinging back in Eldrazi's favor now?
Um, Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has
That's
2
a
more. Mhm.
that's a big body hitting the battlefield and a removal spell blowing up the Lord. Wow. Is this
Brad
enough
also
for
kind.
Brad to go
Sorry, go
offense?
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it enough for Brad to go offense here? Or are we still sitting back, you think, Luna?
Yeah, I think it is enough. He has a ring protection. There's kinda no reason not to unless Brad feels like these blocks aren't good. Pikachu can animate double Mutavault, double block the Reality Smasher, block Tidebinder in 4-3, or sorry, in 4-4. So Pikachu has pretty good blocks. I don't know if Brad wants to attack.
I guess next turn he'll have the 8/8 Cityscape Leveler. Okay, gonna get in gonna get in with the Matter Reshaper to try to draw a card maybe, send the send in the 3/2 just on the off chance that you get to cycle it.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no good blocks if he just attacks just a 3-3. You attack with Smasher, you trade with the Mutavault. If you attack with Thought Knot, you give a card back. You attack with Reshaper, you either get 3 damage or you kill a guy and draw a card. So it seems like a good attack.
Ooh, so what does Merfolk do to get out of this position?
Just
Because
takes
we've definitely
3.
swung back, yeah, so Merfolk takes the 3, but what can really be drawn here to swing this? Because it feels like it's really swung in Brad's favor at
Hmm.
this point.
I think Pikachu brought in a pick your poison, but there's a Cityscape leveler, so even if he picks your poison naming artifact, you can just attack Cityscape. I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, Merfolk doesn't have a lot of ways of getting out of tough situations like this.
There's no Merfolk all is dust yet. Someday maybe, but well, there's the
Yeah.
trade. We'll see what this Mana Reshaper spins into, which is just another land, so that's fine. Well, this is a big top deck. If Merfolk are gonna pull together, it's gonna have to be this turn, I think, or that Cityscape Leveler is going to be a big trampling issue.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not really looking too good.
Here we go. And ooh,
Keyboard.
Lord of Atlantis, but again, no island. This is one of those. It makes me wonder, and I know Merfolk so much worse than Nikachu. I remember the days though when there used to be a ton of spreading seas in Merfolk, and now there's like one in the sideboard and like some tide cheapers in the main deck. This is one of those board states where giving your opponent an island would be really huge, like just game ending.
Yeah, I mean, Pikachu, I don't know if he was joking when he said he's gonna try and bring Merfolk every week. He might be saving the spreading seas for week 2.
That is very
Yeah.
I don't know if he's actually joking. I think he might actually just have enough different Merfolk decks somehow to bring one every week.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's just saving the spreading seas.
So here's the ring. Oh, and a
Oh
worm coil
gosh.
too. And that, oh boy. The big stuff has come off the top at the right time for Brad Nelson. The ring's gonna draw, but this one is looking kind of over-ish to me with this worm coil also coming down.
Brad have any value lands you can search for expedition like Blast Zone or anything?
Let's look at Brad's mana base.
Doesn't look like it.
Eldrazi, yeah, no, it's all Tron lands, and Gemstone Caverns, and basics and Eldrazi Temple, so nothing spicy.
Kind of surprised he didn't sack expedition map first, try and thin out the deck. He already has enough
Yeah,
mana to cast whatever he wants.
yeah, it seems. Yeah, I don't know what Brad's thinking on that one. I don't know if he's worried about like a spreading seas effect shutting down Tron and trying to like wait to see what Tron land he tutors up. But if you get another mine, you have redundancy on each Tron land anyway. So, well, here
Yeah,
comes the attack.
I think all Brad needs to do is just kill the Lord of Atlantis, prevent a Tide Shaper top deck, which would give his team unblockable. Probably just figuring out how to attack to not die.
So this is gonna force some if both of these creatures come in, this will and Brad might push with everything here. Definitely gonna force some blocks. So Nikachu's at 10. He has 13 trampling power and a 4/4 Thought Knot. Definitely gonna require some blocking. There is the Mutavault down there. And the Power Stone can activate Mutavault, so actually getting some Power Stone value somehow.
True. So he needs to put so the Lord's almost certainly gonna die, which means he needs to put 4 toughness in front of the tramplers, and then he also has to chump block the Thought Knot as well. I think Nikachu is gonna just lose his entire board here. We're just gonna go to game 3.
That's yeah. With
I
just a
think
Mutavault left
Brad's
over,
probably
that's
just
not really enough.
trying to figure out if there's any instant speed threats that Nikachu can have. Just looking at the deck list, I don't really see any.
I think maybe the sideboard he might be
Uh,
thinking about the sideboard Harbinger of Tides that could flash in to bounce something, but I don't think there's enough
yeah,
mana to cast it with flash at the moment, so I'm not sure what Merfolk could actually have to, interact with it. So the Cityscape lever blows up the subtlety, and
interesting. Yeah, I guess that makes sense as well, 'cause he would just die to that in the ring. That would give Tide Shaper so Nikachu needs to block to give himself Tide Shaper top deck, if that's
yeah, I think
possible.
that's gotta be the game plan. Nikachu's gotta block in a way where if he top decks a Tide Shaper and gets an island, it's lethal. Can he do that though? That means keeping the Lord of Atlantis, keeping at least one other creature. How much ring damage do we have? 3 ring damage? Okay. I mean, I guess
I think it's 2.
A Tide Shaper top deck could be relevant still. So here comes the blocks.
Only
To and
one of
from
his
its
creatures is
matcher.
gonna die.
Yeah, so Tide Shaper should still be a lethal top deck here, I think.
Yeah.
Even with the Worm Coil coming down, doesn't matter if Island Walk is in play. So, yep, Tidebinder down, Mutavault lives. Nikachu drops to 2. Here comes the Worm Coil, and I think it's Tide Shaper or bust from the Merfolk side. Huge top deck to decide if
Brad's
this is the match or we're going to a game 3. Here's the map sacking. Oh, Ursa Saga.
yeah, Brad's just trying to thin out his deck for the last turn,
And oh,
essentially.
okay, redraw. That's a Waterlog Grove. Can sack that to get one more look at a Tide Shaper.
Yeah, and he has enough mana with the Power Stone as well.
Here we go. The game oh, subtlety.
Doesn't look like it's
And
enough.
yeah, especially now the worm coil. Even if Nikachu can block in a way to stay alive, Brad's gonna gain a bunch of life with the worm coil, and I think it's probably time for a concession here. We'll see.
Yeah, Nikachu will probably force Brad to make awkward okay, yeah,
Oh, and there we
that's fair.
go. On to game number 3. This has been a very close match. Oh,
So
we
on the
see some
play
play draw sideboarding going on for Merfolk. Some one drops that went out coming back in, two drops going out, trying to be a little more aggressive, maybe, being on the play here.
yeah, me on the play, he probably just wants to go with the super proactive game plan. You only really need, like, 1 counter spell for the ring, because Merfolk can kill on turn 4.
Yeah, and Eldrazi doesn't have, like, a ton of great targets outside I guess the mythical All Is Dust that we always talk about but never see, and then the One Ring, there's not a ton to spend, like, a Spell Pierce on, really.
Mhm.
I don't know if Brad's changing anything? I don't think I've seen him change anything, but that's kind of the power of a Karn sideboard, I guess, is you have access to all your sideboard cards in game 1.
Yep, looks like they're both ready.
Here we go. On to the deciding game 3. Who's going to pick up the win here? Merfolk or Eldrazi? And there's the Tide Shaper. Ooh. This looks like two pretty good hands. We have the Tide Shaper with a bunch of action from Merfolk, two Tron lands, Walking Bliss and Reality Smasher, and some ramp from Brad in that Sneaky Dismember, which is pretty relevant against Merfolk. I would think these are both keeps. What are you thinking about these hands, Luna?
Yeah, Brad also has the Gemstone Cavern on the draw, which is nice because you can play with the Mind Stone. They're definitely both keeps. The question is, what does Brad exile with the Gemstone?
That's a tough one. All of his cards are pretty good here.
Yeah, it might be Reality Smasher.
It looks like
Let's.
Red's hovering the Reality Smasher. I think you might be right. Yep. The Reality Smasher down, but starting with an extra mana is pretty huge here. And
Oh,
there is the All Is Dust. Oh my goodness. That's a card we have not seen in game 1 or game 2, but we've talked about every game, the get out of jail free card for the Eldrazi deck, and it might come into play this time.
yeah, and Merfolk doesn't have a lot of pressure right now either. They're kind of a slow hand, no one drop.
Yeah, it's kind of a disruptive hand, right? You have the Hex Catcher that can be a counter. You can deal with a Tron land with Tide Shaper. You got the Tide Binder, but not a fast clock, really. So here comes the Tide Shaper. I assume just going to snipe Urza's tower. So
Hmm.
Island Walk will be on for the time being, although there is a Walking Ballista that is going to be able to answer this if necessary, and a Dismember.
Yeah, Brad has a lot of answers.
Yeah, it's almost a control hand from the Eldrazi deck over there at the moment.
Hmm. See what he draws. He's going to EOT Dismember. That
And
makes
just
sense. He just wants to untap and Ballista for 2.
Yeah, and there's a risk, I guess, of like the hex catcher in the future being a problem if you're trying to dismember.
Oh,
Ooh,
oh
oh
my
boy,
god.
that is a
I
one
think
ring off the top, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be slammed here.
yeah, almost definitely. There's no
Yep.
Tidebinder man out.
So
Immediately
there,
start getting draws.
so there's a tidebinder for next turn, but you get at least one draw off of it. Pithing needle. So, what do you think the pithing needle is for, Luna? Is that for naming like Ether Vial and Mutavault mostly?
Yeah, exactly. Like turns off the manland, trades 1 for 1. It's pretty reasonable. Turns off file. Like it's a 1 for 1. There's enough stuff to counter. Makes
Oh,
sense.
wow. This Thought Knot is actually a huge draw because it's going to protect the ring, I think.
Mhm.
Because this can take the Tide Binder, and then the ring is just set to keep doing its thing. That is a huge draw.
And if Nikachu
Wow.
subtleties it, Brad can just pass the turn, just EOT on Nikachu's turn, the ring, play around Tidebinder. So Nikachu floats 3 mana essentially.
Oh, yeah, this is tough. If you subtlety it too, you're getting to that point where we're on what, turn 3 here, heading towards turn 4, and there's not a Merfolk on the battlefield. Like Merfolk is not there's just no pressure going at the moment, and having to exile a card to subtlety might be necessary, but that's even less pressure you're gonna have. And Eldrazi is gonna win the late game in this matchup, like most of the time. So it seems like a tough position for the Merfolk deck.
Yeah, and Brad already has 2 out of 3 Tron lands as well, so it's going to be able to scale really fast. Like Nikachu doesn't really have a good play here. He can let Thought Knot off. If that happens, Brad takes
Yeah.
Tidebinder, activates Ring. If Nikachu goes for Subtlety, Exile Harbinger, keeps Tidebinder in hand, Brad just passes a turn, makes Nikachu float 3 mana, and then goes EOT Ring, then Nikachu a Tidebinder, then Brad just untaps Ballista, kill the Tidebinder, and then just gets Ring back anyways. So I would almost say it's like not close to a checkmate position. I think the only way Brad could get punished here is if he main phases activates the ring, because maybe it is turn 3 and Brad hasn't played a land yet because that Gemstone Cavern was exiled. So if Brad wants to get greedy and activate the ring, he does open up the window to get Tidebinder, but Brad's a really good player. Probably just gonna pass the turn here.
Yeah, he's I mean, open deck list, plus we've seen a bunch of tide binders, so I think Brad's definitely in tune with the possibility. I imagine it's
Oh,
not.
he's
Oh,
gonna he's gonna
wow.
Tidebinder the evoke and go aggressive. I didn't
Oh,
even think
I
about
love
that.
it. I didn't think of that either, and that I
That's a really
mean,
nice play, actually. I love
that's why
that.
Nikachu's the Merfolk master. All the
Holy,
all the sneaky lines.
oh my god,
Oh, that's
that was
so good.
amazing. That
Yeah,
might
so
be the best thing I've seen all day, to be
now
honest.
there's 6 power on the battlefield. Brad's at 15.
Well, now he has the Merfolk and Immutable attack, so he can push damage. Oh my god.
Oh, he
That
can
play is
play the
actually so
Lord.
sick. If
Can
he didn't
play the
make that play,
Lord.
he was almost certainly, like, losing this game.
Wow,
Now
what a
Nikachu's probably
play.
winning this game.
What a
Amazing.
play. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was a line I did not even see, because now you can drop the Lord, player up the Mutavault, hit for a ton of damage, and then Brad's kinda back to the all his dust, like, needing to hit a Tron land for all his dust maybe to
Yeah,
get out from
exactly.
under this?
Still has Mutavault. But if he hits all his tests, he can needle the Mutavault.
Wow,
So,
what a play.
wow. That's actually amazing. I did not see that. I did not even think about that at all.
No, me either. So here comes the Master of the Pearl Trident, and then you gotta just fire up the Mutavault, right? Yeah, get in
Yeah,
there,
for
hit for as
sure.
much as you can, and that is a big attack. Brad gonna be dropping down to 5, plus the ring down to 3. That means the ring is lethal next turn too. Brad might need a ring here to legend roll away his ring and get protection for a turn.
Yeah, Brad needs Tronland and Ring. Hits Tronland and Ring, he can win, but he kinda needs both.
Yeah, he really does. He's oh boy, 3 cards. You can see 3 cards with the ring. I guess you could crack the Mind Stone, although that makes for some issues with mana potentially. Because there still is also that Mutavault. So even if you wall his dust, you're still at least taking 2 from the Mutavault if you can't also Needle.
Yep.
N Getting Brad down to 4 also just shuts off Dismember pretty
Alright,
much.
here we go. Does he draw it? He draws
Well,
Power Plant,
there is Tron,
but how does he
but
not die to the ring now?
the ring's at 3. It is colorless, not going to go away with all his dust, and I think that Brad can answer the Merfolk board, but not his own one. I mean, that's the power of the ring, right? You get all these cards, but every once in a while there is a cost to it, and Brad might be experiencing that cost right now.
Brad have any instant speed way to gain life? Probably not playing Tron, right?
Yeah, not that I see in his deck list. He does have the Karn. Can the Karn do anything? There is a ring in the sideboard. Oh wait, there's a ring in the
Yeah,
sideboard.
so
So
I think he
Karn
has
can
to go
get a
for
ring from
Karn.
the sideboard to
Mhm.
legend rule the ring, and that will set up all his dust next turn plus Pithing Needle.
Yep,
So actually, this game's not over yet because of the power of Karn here.
yep, and he can even play the Mind Stone too. Looks like that's what he's gonna do. Yeah, Mind Stone, Karn, Ring, and then untap all his Dust Needle, and you're just chilling.
And there's still a Cityscape Leveler in hand to come down. There maybe another Karn activation, although the Mutavault might have to go there. Well, here comes the Karn. It's has to get the ring. That's the only card that can or a
Oh,
okay,
Metamorph
or a Metamorph with blue
for the
mana
ring?
from the Gemstone Caverns. Oh, he's just gonna okay, he's gonna Needle too. All right, so pays life for the Metamorph to copy the ring, and then must be planning on needling off the Gemstone Caverns mana.
Seems risky, but maybe not.
Well, there's the needle. I imagine this is naming Mutavault.
Yeah. Not a huge difference going from 1 or 3 HP.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Well, let's see what the Merfolk can draw here. There's a Hex Catcher, which, ooh, boy. I think there's too much mana on the Tron side of the battlefield for that to really be effective
Mhm. I'm not
at
even
stopping
sure.
the All is Dust.
Could you have a way to blow up the needle?
Oh, so we know there's Pick Your Poison, but I guess there's many artifacts over there.
Yeah, doesn't do it.
Uh, I don't think so. And this might be game for Tron. Wow.
Tron
I mean,
cosplaying as a control deck.
Pretty much. I mean, so Brad still has to close out the game. He is at 1 life. It takes any amount of damage for Merfolk to take this, but this All Is Dust is going to be really brutal, especially combined with the Pithing Needle, and I just don't see a way to get the Pithing Needle off the battlefield. That would be the game swinging play to turn the Mutavaults back on. Is there any way? Oh, there is a Flash Lord in hand. Brad's at
Yeah,
1. So he
Brad just
does
has to
need to
play
have
the
a
ballista.
blocker. Yeah, he needs a blocker along with all his dust, but there are plenty in hand. So here's all his dust. Gets rid of all the merfolk. Wow, this has been a great game. This is very back and forth.
It has. Anytime a player wins at 1 life, it's great.
So there's the all his dust. I don't think so. You could play the Lord, sack 4 merfolk, but then you kind of all his dust yourself anyway. So I don't think the Hexcacher comes out here to do anything.
Yeah, Brad has 5 mana. Yeah, doesn't change any math.
And then I guess you just ballista, run out of ballista to have some sort of blocker and then just go for you got cityscape level the next turn and go from there. So
Yeah.
what can Nikachu draw? Is there anything left in the deck? It might be it might be subtlety. Like an end of turn subtlety would be a way you could maybe sneak in over like a cityscape leveler and a ballista onto.
Yeah, but even then, you can buff up the ballista
Yeah.
in order to kill the subtlety.
So it might just be over.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he can draw. Does
There's the
feel a little
ballista.
over, but Nikachu has at least a few turns. He's at 18.
Yep. It speeds up once a cityscape leveler comes down, so probably 3-ish turns, but well, let's see what's off the top here. And Lord of
Mm,
Atlantis, not great in the face of that ballista.
no, it is not.
I mean, I guess you have to run it out because what else are you doing? But yeah, I mean, there's a ballista and there's also the cityscape leveler, so there's no way this Lord's actually going to survive.
Mhm.
Brad, maybe Brad accidentally activates the One Ring. That could be a way.
This is Moto. You can misclick
Yeah,
for
it is
MTGO.
possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
That's another card though, and I imagine that's gotta be very bad news for Nikachu there. Best card from your sideboard, usually pretty good in most situations. I don't even know what Brad will tutor up here. Like, I guess you could get an ensnaring bridge. I don't even know if you need that at this point because you're gonna be the one attacking here. Cityscape leveler, liquid metal coating to start attacking the lands, but here comes a cityscape leveler. Gonna blow up the Lord of Atlantis. There's a power stone, but not looking great for the merfolk.
Brad could also just plus Karn and make his ring a creature.
Get in there. That's true. It is
Yeah,
indestructible. Yeah, force through some more damage. I guess I could also
there's
just snipe the power stone. I don't know how much that actually matters, but
oh, he's
and
not gonna play it. Yeah,
not
just
even gonna play it.
have the ballista.
Ugh, another Lord of Atlantis would have been very good earlier in this game, but a little late for the Lord here. The Cityscape Leveler triggers on attack too, so did you even run it out? Like it's just going to get blown up. There's nothing. It's a tough position here for the Merfolk, I think.
Well, I think he might just be dead if he doesn't play it, or some sort of chump blocker. Brad can EOT, make ballista 4/4, untap, make he has 8, 12, make 3 more counters, so put up to 7, hit Nikachu for 15, and then ballista.
Yeah, this
So
might just be game.
yeah,
I guess so. Nikachu can flash in the Hex Catcher to try to block after the Cityscape Leveler triggers, but then the Ballista just snipes it. So I think
yeah,
this looks like lethal to me.
yeah. It's lethal, I'm pretty sure.
And
Brad
there's a counter on
might
the Ballista.
maybe Brad plays around Harbinger or something because he's afraid of something.
Uh, I guess Harbinger. Oh, another Always does too. Yeah, I guess Harbinger is a card that Brad's probably expecting to be sideboarded in. It's got to
He
be.
is at
eh,
1. He
He is at
doesn't wanna
one.
die.
He does not want to die. Yeah, well, he's just gonna go for it. Here they come. Cityscape Leveler getting in with the Ballista, and
Brad's just
I
double
don't-
checking.
yeah, I don't even think there's.
Oh, he's gonna.
I'm gonna make a Power
Give himself
Stone,
some
okay.
extra mana.
Yeah, that's cute. Eldrazi can take advantage of Power Stones to some extent.
Pikachu's not even blocking. Maybe I think Pikachu needs to bluff the Harbinger right now.
Yeah.
Make Brad a little concerned.
Yeah, he's gotta make Brad worried about dumping all of his mana into the Ballista, right? Like, that's the
Yeah,
way he can maybe stay alive for a turn, is if Brad's just too afraid
yeah.
to actually max pump, but
But even then, Ballista just kills a Harbinger. So
yeah, it's
Brad's pretty
yeah.
safe to at least buff 2 times, I think is all he needs for lethal.
Yeah, I think well, alright. Well,
Can
so
we
I
go to
guess
5?
he goes to 5, but he can still pump Ballista to lethal at any time, right?
Let's see, 3, 4. Yeah, he has enough. Okay, he's just gonna pass his turn, force
Yeah,
Pikachu to do something.
okay, so here comes the Hex Catcher. And now this means there's not enough mana for a Tide Shaper, so Brad's gonna
Yeah.
pump, and
All
that
right,
that
there we go.
equals the end of the game.